The point to be made is whether or not the fathers were thinking about the future, they created these rights for the intent has been dealing with many shootings and gang violence for a long time. And it makes sense for the government to try to come up with solutions to lessen the percentage of this violence. The anti-gun movement is only going to continue to advance the danger and enforce fear of firearms, rather than focusing on the psychological issues of the person behind the gun. By implementing this fear, Americans are going to forget the importance of owning a firearm. This is going to lead to worse restrictions of purchasing guns, which will give a hand to those who wish to overtake those who are seemingly weaker. President Ronald Reagan once said, "We have problems in our country, and many are praying and waiting for God to do something." I just wonder if maybe God isn't waiting for us to do something. And while no one is capable of doing everything, everyone is capable of doing something. Unless those who know the truth are willing to stand up for our rights as tax-paying citizens, our people are going to remain in fear and nothing will change. Thank you.
Where's Morgan's dad at? There's your proud papa right there. This is a real deal right here. Real deal. Oh, he's a military guy too. No wonder. On the way up here, Paul and I were talking, one of the other board members was talking on the ham radio, and I said, Paul, I was way ahead of Paul. He hadn't even left work yet, just barely left work. And I said, Paul, stop by my house and pick up what I forgot. And he said, what'd you forget? I said, I don't know, but I know I forgot something. So he couldn't go by and pick it up, and I didn't remember what I forgot until I got up here and I got to going over my stuff. I forgot the certificates that we're going to give away today. They're laying on my desk. I will get you one, Morgan. And I said a while ago we gave a $1,000 scholarship. The self-defense fund guys over there, stand up and wave, guys. That's $500 of that was for them. They matched our $500 scholarship. And I didn't intend to leave them out, but I did. Morgan, this was a great pleasure. And I don't think you're going to come out of college being a communist, although some do. We love you and we thank you very much. Okay, Miss Debbie Stacy, could you come up to the front, please? If y'all remember, last year we gave away an Outstanding Member Award. Where's Debbie? Oh, there she is. And we named it last year the Dennis Stacy Outstanding Member Award. And our idea was that when we get enough outstanding members, instead of the burden being on the group leaders or the board to pick who the outstanding member is, that those who went before them and received the Outstanding Member Award would make that decision. But first, Debbie, I want to give you this right here. That is the very first honorary lifetime membership that we've ever given away. And since Debbie's here, we're going to let her give away the outstanding membership for this year. The envelope. I had to make her tear open something. If you need some help, we'll get you somebody. You have to tear it open.
I think my glasses.
They keep moving.
Bruce will help you. It's okay. Nothing to be nervous about. No pressure's on. Just a bunch of eyes looking at you.
And the winner is
Say it loud and proud.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank everybody for being here today. This honor is something that I hold deep to my heart. I'd like to thank Bama Carry for doing this on behalf of the memory of Dennis, on behalf of my family, and on the behalf of Bama Carry. This next award will go to Johnny Morris.
Johnny Boy, where you at, Johnny Boy? Here it comes. And as I said, I forgot your award, but I promised you one. But here's a little thing: if you go out there to the merchandise table, there's $100 out there waiting for you, free merchandise. Congratulations to Johnny Morris.
I just started out going to meetings, just this meeting, that meeting, speaking to people. I love to talk, everything like that.
We get an amen on that.
But I mean, I'm just a patriot and a Christian. And when you go to these chapter meetings, and you're sitting there eating the chicken fingers, wish you had more tea, think about what you're actually at, what you're doing. Get up and ask that group leader, what can I do to help you? What can I do to help you? Get involved. Go to city council meeting, report back to Bama Carry, help that chapter leader do his meetings. Be a part. It's not that hard. Because I'm telling you, from this patriot in the trench, the liberals are coming. And we can't beat them off the sidewalk. We got to educate them, and we got to educate our people. We've got to rally. We've got to grow our membership. We need to go to Montgomery with 2 million members. And we need to raise money. We need to have billboards all over Alabama. Call me, Bama Carry.
We give the outstanding membership to Bama Carry members who show leadership, dedication toward educating others while helping to preserve the right to keep and bear arms. And Bruce, I'll let you.
Debbie, before you sit down, Stephen was talking about the new forum that we're going to have in the new website. Probably get the website open and then a little bit later open the forum. It's going to be mostly for members only. But one of the things that we have been looking at and have been requested to do, since Facebook likes to shut all these sites down, we're going to have a place on there for gun sales, trade your weapons, whatever you want, ammo, stuff like that. The thing that I haven't really talked to the board about, but I'm sure they will agree with me. That part of the forum is going to be named the Dennis Stacy Gun Shop. So, there you go. Dennis was a good one. Okay.
Amen.
You're welcome. Now then, we've got another person in our audience today who constantly shifting money from his account to Bama Carry's account. I can't tell you the amount of money that has been donated. He said, give somebody a membership that can't afford it. And due to his commitment to Bama Carry, our second lifetime membership is going to go to Mr. Jim Harris. Jim, if you'd come up, please.
Come on down, Jim. Was his membership expired like 2080 or something? I can't remember. 2031. Oh, okay.
I'm shocked. Well, I guess I'll just make a donation. I was going to add another 10 years today. So I thank you for all that y'all have done. I believe in what you do, and let's just keep it going.
It's really a blessing when somebody sends you an email or a text or calls you on the phone and says, what can I do to help? What do you need? What do you need? How can I help? And that's what we need more of that. Next up would be our constitutional carries. Words escape me, Gerald. The bill filer of SB 4, Mr. Gerald Allen. Please welcome Gerald. Come on here. Let people see all of you.
Good. It's good. Like you ready? Debbie, thank you for what you have done, and good to be here. Connie and Greg, it's good to be in your Senate district as well, and it's always good to be in Jasper. And it's good to be here today. My wife, Sheila, this morning asked me, earlier this morning, she said, where are you going? Are you going to be safe? And I said, it's going to be the safest place in America today. Good. I'm really just honored to be here today and be a part of this program. Thank you, Eddie, for inviting me. But one of the things that I feel so confident about is that the state Senate, again, you know, I'm gonna just tell you that we support you, and we have proven that in time and time again, twice, to pass a very important piece of legislation to further protect the Second Amendment. You know what, I wish in some way that Morgan's essay could have been read at the State of the Union address.
Amen.
You know, from time to time, we all need to be reminded, you know, about historic things and how important the founding fathers was to each of us. And it's just one of those kind of things that Morgan reminded me how important it is to make sure that our children, grandchildren, and the future generations of this great country understand the history of the Second Amendment. And then for you and I and others have to pay a fee or tax to fulfill the constitutional duties, you know, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard of, you know. But one of the amazing things that happens when we pass the constitutional carry of the states, the sale of permits goes up. And to the life of me, I just can't understand, Bruce, why these sheriffs and other public safety officials don't understand that we're helping you. It's a benefit, number one, it's a benefit to be able to go and purchase the permit because you may want to go into a gun shop and purchase it because you've been through that vigorous background check already. Not only that, but if you travel like myself and Senator Reed and Bruce and Jimmy, you know, you have that assurances that other states in this country is going to honor that permit. And so it's a very important piece of legislation. And again, Senate Bill 4, we have some supporters in the House. If the leadership of the House would just let the bill go to the full floor of the House, right, it would pass. Right. So let me encourage each of you, you know, all of you come from different parts of the state and different parts of communities. You have contact with your local sheriff, law enforcement. More in time in history than I have ever seen in my life what's happening with our law enforcement. We need to put our arms around them, so to speak, love them, pray for them, and to support them, but let them know that we've got their back. And don't be abrasive to these people. You know, encourage them. But at the same time, I'm going to challenge each of you to make those phone calls to your House members. And you don't need to call Senator Reed. You don't need to call Miss Connie, okay? We know where they are. but place your efforts on those individuals and those elected officials who have placed their hand on the Bible and made that pledge oath of office to support the Constitution of this great country and the Constitution of this state. Challenge them in a very good conversation. Don't be abrasive. But anyway, I'm looking forward to carrying that bill and again being successful in the state Senate. And with your help and encouragement to the House members, then it's going to be your job to reach out and touch those individuals as well. So, Ed, thank you for inviting me to be here today. Thank you.
Brother Gerald's been in the gun rights fight for a long time, or been for us for a long time. I have a picture of him from several years ago when his hair had a lot more color than it does now, down at the State House standing in front of a sign supporting our gun rights. Brother Reed, will you make your way on up, Brother Reed? Thank you. We thank you for being here, sir.
Yes, sir. Eddie, thank you so much. Good to see you today. You guys are right here in my Senate district, so welcome. The mayor of Jasper has already said welcome to you, but I'll add my welcome as well. I represent Senate District 5, which is Walker County, Fayette County, Winston County, portions of Jefferson and Tuscaloosa County, and a bunch of y'all live in my district, so God bless you. I appreciate you being here today. Senator Allen, thank you for your leadership always. I appreciate that. Representative Rowe, great to see you. Always good to be with you. I know you're going to be hearing from some other elected officials today, some of them statewide officials, just like the auditor who's already here with us today. I understand the Lieutenant Governor's on his way, going to visit with you. I understand the President of the Senate, my colleague and Gerald's colleague, Senator Marsh, is on his way, going to be here to speak to you. So it's going to be an exciting day for you, and I am glad you're here, and I'm glad that I've gotten the invitation from Eddie and from Chuck and Ed and to be able to be with you today. I am a supporter of the Second Amendment, and am going to continue to be in the state Senate as the majority leader, looking for an opportunity to move forward Gerald's bill as we've successfully done the last few years. So that program is what we're going to be about. I don't think we're going to have any issues with it. Let me give you a little background on some things that are new and different. In the Alabama Senate, we have 13 new members out of 35. In my caucus, we have 27 Republican senators. And of those 27 senators, there's only 4 of those men out of 27 that have served longer than 8 years in the state Senate. Okay? We've got a lot of new members. Of those 11 new members in my Republican caucus that are from places all over Alabama, I've had conversations with each of those in regards to their support of the Second Amendment, their support specifically of the legislation that Senator Allen has had for several years, and I am confident that they are supportive. So, we've added new members through the election cycle and process. I think our ability in the state Senate to support the Second Amendment and other legislation that is important to you and important to me is going to be better than it even was in the last quadrennium. So that's a positive thing moving forward, and I wanted you to be aware of that. As we go back and look at, just to give you a little update as to the process and what has transpired. We had the election, went through the election cycle. Again, of those 27, I had 14 senators that had some kind of opposition that were in my caucus. Once we finished the election, we said that we wanted to have 27 Republican members. We got 27 Republican members. Several of those races were very competitive, but we were successful in that regard. We had an orientation session, which we started a lot of training for the new members. That was in December. Then in the beginning of January, we had the organizational session. And that was one of my responsibilities in working on different folks that were going to be involved and engaged in the Senate, where they were going to serve, what committees, who was going to be chairman of different committees, those kinds of things. which is a very important process to set that moving forward for the next 4 years. We accomplished that. Then we came back for budget hearings, which was just last week. And the good news is for the first time in a long time, Alabama is in a much better shape fiscally than what we have been as we came through and then tried to recover from the Great Recession. We're going to have more resource in both education and the general fund budgets than we've had. And so that's a positive thing in regards to the importance of being able to support state services. Then the next thing on the calendar is March the 5th. And in regards to what Senator Allen said related to communicating with members of the legislature, know that March the 5th is when we go into legislative session. That's the first day. And then all the legislation will be there. Gerald's already got his bill filed. He's already talked to me about it about 100 times. And so we're going to be working on moving it as fast as I can shift things in leadership to the right place and let it move forward. But that gives you an update on where we are. Again, it's an honor for me to serve. It's an honor for me to serve this district. It's an honor for me to be the leader in the state Senate. And I will look forward to continuing to defend the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America every way I can. For the good of the country, for the good of my children and yours and grandchildren to come. Thank you for what you do. God bless America. God bless the state of Alabama. God bless you. Thanks for letting me be with you today.
Ms. Connie, are you ready to come say a few words? What I'm trying to do, folks, is just get all these politicians out of the way. You know what I'm saying? Please make welcome Connie Rowe, who is carrying a bill in the House for us.
Gosh, let me tell you what's tough is to speak after Senator Reed. Because he covers it all, he says it all, but I'm going to do the best I can do. I too want to welcome you to Jasper. This is my home, and the people here are very, very flattered that your organization chooses for the second year to hold your statewide meeting here in our city. I think this is a great facility. I think you've got a great setup. It's awfully organized. I didn't mean it's organized in an awful way. It's awfully well organized, I should have said.
Did you get that on tape? Did you get that on tape?
Hey, no, wait. I did want to talk to you about a specific bill. Back in the fall, Chuck, who was a friend of mine, Chuck Wright, he and I sat down and talked about a host of issues. And, you know, we have constitutional carry, which is the biggest issue that we face in the state in supporting our Second Amendment rights. But there are also some other issues out there that need to be addressed. We looked at a list of those that had been compiled by your membership and specifically looked at one that deals with if you have had a pistol permit denied or if you have had one that has been revoked and you go through the district court process. What kind of time period exists between the district court's decision that it be re-awarded to you or awarded to you initially and the time that it's issued from a sheriff's department? Alleged that is a problem in the state. So let me kind of read you the synopsis of this bill real quick. Existing law sets no time frame for a sheriff to issue or reinstate a person's pistol permit after his or her successful appeal or denial of a revocation. This bill would require a sheriff to issue or reinstate the appellate's pistol permit within 3 days after receipt of a district court order in favor of an individual whose pistol permit was denied or revoked. So I've had several media outlets contact me and want to talk about this bill and why this bill. And what I've told them is that apparently in the state of Alabama, there are some individuals who, after a district court has awarded them a good decision in having a pistol permit either not issued or revoked, to be reinstated and having that enforced by their sheriff. So what Chuck and I discussed this morning and what I've given a lot of thought to is this: I need your help. If you or someone you know within the state of Alabama has experienced a delay between the time of a district court decision to issue or reinstate a permit and the period of time after that decision was made that it took for the person to receive their permit. If that was an unreasonable period of time, I need to know about it. I need to know about it so I can talk about it in Montgomery so we can get this bill passed. If you want to give me a district court number, that'd be great, but you don't have to. If you want to give me a name and a county and a sheriff's name, that would be great. But if all you can give me, even if it's something vague, if it's a person in Walker County, and we don't have a case like this in Walker County that Chuck or I either one are aware of, but let's use it as an example. If a district court judge in Walker County issued a favorable opinion for a person who has not been able to get or has had a pistol permit revoked, and then it took the sheriff of Walker County, again, this is just an example, it hasn't happened, a long period of time in order for them to issue that, then I need to know that. The county is really important. I'd love to have the person's name. So if we get into a situation in Montgomery where we have a public hearing on this bill, that there's some people I could call upon that could witness or testify to the fact that they have been a victim of a circumstance like this. So some of you can't tell from there. Jim Ziegler thinks I'm winking at him. My left eye was swollen shut this morning when I woke up. And I'm going to be leaving here shortly to see if I can find a Saturday ophthalmologist. But if you can't get that to me before I leave here, I'm going to try and wait and see our Lieutenant Governor, who I'm real excited about making yet another trip to Jasper and another trip to visit specifically with this group. Give that to Chuck today before you leave here. And even if it's something that you have to do later and email to Chuck or mail it to him, and then he can get those to me before March 5th. This bill has already been pre-filed. It's House Bill 17, and that's from memory, but I think that's correct. Go online and take a look at it. I certainly hope that I'm going to have your support, and I would love to have your help, again, if you have any examples. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you. You know, there are a lot of people that look at the people who serve in Montgomery, and it's that they're all politicians, that they're all in it for this reason or for that reason. But I can tell you that my personal experience has been is that the majority of people in Montgomery are people. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer. Most of you know my background came from law enforcement. But I'm in Montgomery for my district. And let me tell you how my district feels. First of all, let me tell you what my district is. I have the most populated portions of Walker County, and I have a very small portion of Blount County. If you were looking at the map, if you carved out a little area over in the Smoke Rise area of Blount County, I have that part of Blount County over to the Walker County line. It's pretty unpopulated. There's not a lot of people there, but they're my people. And I can tell you how my people feel in my district. I intend to poll it at some level prior to a vote this year, but I know that my people support constitutional carry. Let me tell you how I vote in Montgomery. I vote how my people tell me to vote in the majority. Now, I represent a lot of folks, and they don't always agree, but I am convinced overwhelmingly that the people in my district want to see constitutional carry in the state of Alabama. And I want you to know, as I said, as a member of the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee in the House of Representatives, that if we can get it to the committee, that I intend to vote that through to the floor. Thank you a lot for your support and for your invitation to be here.
Okay, let's see, where's my time going? I'm sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm talking with the microphone stuck under my lip, so y'all have to forgive me for that. Greg Hopkins. Oh, he's going to run here. They don't call him Wrong Road Greg for nothing.
Eddie, can I make a quick announcement while we're waiting?
Yeah.
Back in July Bama Carry joined forces with the folks at the Self-Defense Fund. They are here today. If you have any questions about coverage, what you can do, what you can't do, I'd like to introduce Larry Kyleberg and his son Task. If y'all would stand up. If you got any questions, go see them. They'll be glad to help you out on that. Thank you, Larry. Y'all come. And I forgot to mention, since we started in July, we are pushing 200 total enrollments with the Self-Defense Fund. So
240.
I'm talking about SDF 200, 240 on GOA.
I'm sorry, you're right.
Hey folks, I'm
Turn it on, Greg, turn it on.
Curry's.
Greg, turn it on. Turn it on.
Hello, test. One,
Okay, go.
testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I'm Bama Carry's recovering lawyer. I've written the book, A Time to Kill, The Myth of Christian Pacifism, and we now have a video. Ever since I taught the Huntsville Police Department use of force law, I also started a class, which at that time in 1991 was 3 hours. Now it's 6 hours. When I teach armed church security teams, it is 7 hours plus 3 hours the night before on the Bible and self-defense. So people can understand that from Genesis to Revelation, God says that we are commanded to defend the innocent. Now, as far as the law, I put out a supplement to my class. It's a 4.5-hour video on the self-defense laws of Alabama, the carry laws of Alabama, how not to get shot by the responding officers because they can't see your halo, okay, what to say, what not to say to the cops, and the physio-psychological situations that cause you to be a very bad witness right at that time for yourself and the kind of things that can happen later. If you act according to the standard by which you will be judged, you will not be found wanting in your judgment. But when people tell you that all you have to say is, I was in fear for my life, let me give you the legal assessment of that. Because the next thing the prosecutor's going to say is, why? And that comes down to what this course teaches you. CYA. Can you articulate? Can you put together what the bad guy was doing and say A, B, and C? I knew that was a robbery, not a theft, because you can't use deadly force to protect your property in Alabama. And I not only knew the facts of the case, but when he did 1, 2, 3, and I put A, B, C, then I shot him. And it was legal. And when it's legal, since 2005 in Alabama, you can't be sued by the dead guy's estate, nor can he reach out from his wheelchair and drag you into financial ruin. That's a good thing, okay? So if you know the law, if you understand the standard by which you will be judged, then you won't have to rely on, I'd rather be tried by 12 than carried out by 6. Legal analysis of that? Because the judge has instructed the jury, and he's going to tell them, folks, I'm going to give you the parameters of the law. And here's what you can do. And did this person match these parameters? If so, it's self-defense. You can let them all go down the street happy. If not, you're going to jail for a long time. All right? So, what we'd like to help you with is hope is not a strategy. Knowing the law is. And that's what we have for you back there. I also will come to your town and train you for 6 hours on the use of force. I will train your church security team for 3 hours on the Bible and self-defense and 7 hours on use of force. We're throwing a lot of stuff about trespass and everything. So if you want to know the law, please come see us at our table. And otherwise, if you know that if your law is a double-edged sword, make sure your edge is sharper. Thank you.
Our next speaker is known by a good many of you, and he has also helped several of you. Champ Crocker is an Alabama-based lawyer who handles complex litigation, state and federal courts, served as a special assistant attorney general, municipal judge, a law professor. He represents individuals, businesses, and is an approved counsel for the Police Benevolent Association, U.S. Concealed Carry Association, Self-Defense Fund, Travelers Insurance Company, and Bama Carry. Oh, wait a minute, that wasn't on there. He is licensed to practice before the United States Supreme Court, and he attends oral arguments there every chance he gets. You come on down, Champ, if you want to. Champ is a frequent lecturer and commentator on legal issues with a particular interest in forensic use of technological evidence, not effort, and much, much, much more. I'm not going to read the rest of this because I'm going to cut into your time, Champ. If you want to come on up here. When he's not in court, we'll let it go. Good morning. Thank you for having me. You know, it's good to see a lot of friends here today. About a year ago, Bama Carry took me in. I gotten to go around the state and talk about some of the things I'm going to talk about today with the Stand Your Ground law, but I've been fortunate to go to Jefferson County and Marshall County and Marengo and Tuscaloosa, Blount, Coleman, Marshall, Madison, and so it's good to be here with you at your Freedom Conference. I want to introduce my family who's joined me today. To my right over here is my wife, Emily. My youngest son, Charles, is raising his hand, and my oldest son, Henry, in the bomber jacket next to them. But yeah, Charles, I see you over there. Now, usually when I'm making this presentation, I will allow time for questions at the end. And so if anyone has questions, feel free to speak up. I have some hard copies of my presentation. If anyone wants this, it's got the Stand Your Ground law in it. I'll be glad to give that to you after we finish. I've also submitted it to Bama Carry to either put it on the website or email it out to you. So they have that as well. So, I have to tell you, and some of you have heard this story. Last summer, I was on my way to the Bama Carry meeting in Tuscaloosa County. And this song came on the radio. And it caught my eye because on my radio it lists the title of the song, and it said, "No Lawyers in Heaven." Which kind of offended me. And,
Go to your safe space.
That's right, that's right. And so I started listening to it, and I looked up the lyrics and share a couple of those with you. I got mugged my first day in town. I jumped on that mugger's back when I chased him down. His counsel claimed I used excessive force. His client suffered whiplash and undue mental stress. Now he's occasionally depressed. I hope that after the next 20 or so minutes that this will be helpful to you and you won't be singing the blues. And so, stand your ground. What is it and what is it not? That's what we're going to talk about today. Now, and let me just say one more note about my family before I get into the law, about what stand your ground is not. My oldest son, Henry, has been to a couple of these with me. And not long ago, in my house, I heard my youngest, Charles, just screaming. And I walk in the room and Henry is standing over him. And I said, "Henry, what did you do to him?" And Henry said,
I was just exercising my rights under the stand your ground law. Let's talk about why that doesn't qualify. So the stand your ground law provides no duty to retreat and justifies the use of force in defending yourself or someone else when you reasonably believe you are facing the imminent use of physical force. Your belief must be reasonable as to the threat which is facing you. And the law says a reasonable belief is one formed in reliance upon reasonable appearances. It's not a belief that's formed recklessly or negligently. And the test is not whether or not you are correct in your belief, but whether your belief was reasonable. And people ask me to give an example of that. Well, I'll give you an example of that. Let's say you are walking through a dark alley and you see a gun pointed at you and you have to protect yourself. Well, it turns out the gun you saw was a cap gun and not a real gun. Would it have been a reasonable belief that it was a real gun? Maybe so. That's just an example of a reasonable belief of the force you are facing. Now, very important, the stand your ground law is different from common law self-defense. 33 states have some form of stand your ground, which is a form of immunity. Immunity. So here's the difference. Under self-defense, you go to court and a judge or a jury decides whether or not you were defending yourself, whether or not you had the right to defend yourself. Under the stand your ground law, you are entitled to a pre-trial evidentiary hearing where a judge decides whether or not the stand your ground law applies to you, whether or not you were acting reasonably. No jury, just a judge. And if the defendant prevails there, it's over. And the immunity, we're talking criminal immunity and civil immunity. I know the self-defense fund folks are here. The threat of lawsuits when you use a gun is just a reality, okay? But if you are justified under the stand your ground law, you have immunity both criminally and civilly. Now, people say, who's the burden of proof on, right? Let's say you get charged criminally. We all have heard they got to prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Well, in the stand your ground context, if you are asserting that defense, the burden is on you as the defendant. And the burden is a preponderance of evidence, which is a low standard. But if you are asserting stand your ground immunity, it is your burden to show that your use of force was justified. Okay? Any questions about any of that so far, about the burden of proof? Now, I'm going to give you some examples, but before I do, let's talk about the difference between the stand your ground law and the castle doctrine. Okay? We all know the castle doctrine. Goes back hundreds of years that someone's home is their castle. And that's what the law used to be in Alabama, which said if you were in your home and someone is coming in on you, then you've got the right to defend yourself. The stand your ground law takes that a step further. Under the stand your ground law, you don't have to be in your home. It's anywhere you have a right to be, okay? In public, at a hotel where you're staying, at Walmart, in a restaurant, wherever you have a right to be, you have the right to assert the stand your ground law. So it moves the old castle doctrine from your home to outside your home.
Okay, and an example that I give, it's in my paper, is if you're in a castle state and you catch a home intruder, you can run away or stand and fight, your choice. If you live in a stand your ground state, you have that same choice if you walk up on a mugging on the street, or you're about to be mugged yourself, okay? It goes beyond the home. Now, there are several examples in the law. The most common one that we see is when someone is face to face with a bad actor who they reasonably believe is going to use deadly physical force, okay? A holdup, a mugging, a robbery, something of that nature. The stand your ground law also applies to home invasions and to protection of others, okay? If there is a robbery going on, say at a business, and you're driving by, you see that going on, I'm not saying you should stop, you should call the police. But the stand your ground law does extend to defenses of other people. Now, what it does not apply to is defense of property, okay? If somebody is tearing down your mailbox, or tearing down your fence post, and you go out there and shoot them, you're going to jail. Stand your ground does not apply to that. And I've gotten a lot of questions about this, and a lot of people disagree with that, but you absolutely cannot do that. There has to be a threat to you or someone else physically. Now, I'll give you an example. There is a case in another county where a man walked outside his house last December, and he saw his own truck headlights speeding away. Okay? He thought someone was stealing his vehicle. It certainly looked that way. So he has a deer rifle on him, and he fires to the back of the truck and hits the occupant. Okay. Turns out it was his son, and he's now charged with manslaughter. And he's charged with manslaughter because you cannot use deadly physical force in order to protect personal property. Okay. Now, there are some exceptions. Let's say that you witness what you think is a home invasion of someone else, and you interfere and you use force to stop that threat. If it turns out you were wrong, and the person you thought was a bad guy actually had a right to be there, say he locked his keys outside and is breaking in the window, stand your ground immunity does not apply to that situation if you become involved in it. Stand your ground immunity applies to defense of a child. But if it turns out you're wrong, and the person who you see carrying a child, putting a child in a car, that they actually had a right to do so, you don't have stand your ground immunity for that. Probably the most important point is you cannot be breaking the law. You have to be in a lawful place, lawful time, with a lawful purpose in order to have stand your ground immunity. You can't be the initial aggressor. You've got to have a right to be there, and you can't be breaking the law. I'll give you an example. There was a case in North Alabama last year where a drug deal went bad. And there was a shooting, fatality, and the shooter was put on trial. Well, the shooter says he should be entitled to stand your ground immunity because the person he shot started it. But this defendant was a convicted felon, had no right to own a gun, certainly had no right to be involved in an illegal drug deal, he's breaking the law. What do you think happened to his stand your ground claim? It was denied. It was denied. Now, even though his stand your ground claim was denied, he was still allowed to plead self-defense. Okay, you can always plead self-defense, and it's up to a judge whether or not to give that instruction to a jury. But because stand your ground is a form of immunity, then there are very strict guidelines by which it applies to you. So just remember, lawful place, lawful purpose, lawful time. You can't start it, you can't be the initial aggressor. You can't be fighting the police. Okay? There is a case pending right now in the state of Florida in the appellate courts where a police officer is on trial for a shooting. And the police officer who is charged with the crime has asserted the stand your ground defense. Florida has the same, pretty close to the same stand your ground law that Alabama does. And the appellate courts in Florida are deciding whether or not a police officer has the right to assert stand your ground liability. Now, I don't know about you, my own opinion is that a police officer doesn't have any less rights than someone else. Okay? And I represent police officers through the Police Benevolent Association, and it just makes sense that they have those same rights, especially when they're protecting the rest of us. One other little quirk in the stand your ground law that I always mention, I'm going to read this directly from the statute, that it does not apply if, quote, the physical force was the product of combat by agreement. So if we've got anybody who likes to duel out here, you may get self-defense, but you're not getting stand your ground. Okay? You cannot have any dueling. One thing I mentioned a few minutes ago was that you are entitled to this pre-trial hearing, and that is true in both civil and criminal cases. When the law was first passed, it wasn't clear whether or not you got a pre-trial hearing. And in 2016, Alabama's legislature amended the law and said, yes, you get this pretrial evidentiary hearing. And it only makes sense that you do. Now, the law does not say how far in advance of trial you get your pretrial hearing. I had one where we did it the morning of. It's kind of tough. But generally, it will be with enough time, weeks or even months before a trial. Okay? So here's the key, Bama Carry. You have the right to stand your ground so long as you aren't breaking the law, you're somewhere you have a right to be, and you were not the initial aggressor. Okay? Questions? Anybody have questions? All right, Charles, I will answer your question on the way back to Coleman. All right. Yes, sir.
One thing that's been happening up, like in Wisconsin, a whole lot of police officers have been invading other people's homes than what is on the warrant. If a family has to go through that and they don't know who's coming through the front door, what happens if they start shooting at the police officers or whoever law enforcement is?
Yes, sir. Well, let's think about it. Just under the stand your ground context, homeowner is somewhere they have a right to be. They, assuming they're not breaking the law, not the initial aggressor. I think it would come down to what happened on a case-by-case basis. Did the officers who were at the wrong place, did they identify themselves? Were they, what were they wearing? Did they announce that they were police? Certainly if they announced they were police, I would say that, the homeowner should stand down. But if somebody comes in and does not identify themselves, and it looks like a break-in, then I think it's going to come down to what their reasonable belief was in that situation. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Could you clarify for me who's the initial aggressor? So if they come through the home, is that defined as they're initiating the aggression?
Yes. Because if there is a forcible entry into your home, then it is presumed that person means you harm. Okay. Yes, sir.
I am not an attorney, and I have not stayed at a Holiday Inn Express. But my question is this. I've had people comment in my presence that if you carry a firearm, you have lost your right to get angry about anything and to get into an argument. And I know that many arguments, start out as verbal, and then somebody crosses the threshold into violence. Take road rage, for instance. Obviously on a highway, everybody's where they're supposed to be, where they have a right to be. Something happens and they get into some sort of a confrontation. At what point do you have more rights than the other person, let's say, to defend yourself against them when the argument appeared to have been started mutually?
It's probably going to be an issue of fact, but I think the line is going to be where, at what point do you have the reasonable belief that you're about to be harmed physically? At what point do you reasonably believe that this is more than just an argument? Okay, and in a lot of cases, these things have to be decided in court by a judge, by a jury, which side has the more credible theory, which side has the most convincing case. And that may come down to the quality of the evidence you have. There was a successful stand your ground defense in Tuscaloosa County for an incident that happened at a Shell station in Tuscaloosa. And it just so happened the whole thing was caught on video. And so it was easy for the court to see that the person charged was not the initial aggressor. It was justified in using force. But that's the exception. In most cases, it's not caught on video. And so, it's going to come down to when did it escalate? Bruce?
Just one quick thing before you speak. If y'all guys in the back or anywhere, if you're speaking, please speak softly, because I can hear from the outside out there, people talking. It's a little bit disruptive to us in here. Thank you for your patience on that.
In the stand your ground law, where does that come into effect? Like, say you're in a parking lot and you're being approached and you're telling someone to stop and they won't stop. You may not see a weapon, but there's always that potential. I mean, you don't see one on me now, but I'm armed. So you've got someone approaching you and you're telling them to stop. You don't know what they're up to. At what point does that kick in that you have a right to act?
Well, in a parking lot, first, that's somewhere you have a right to be, okay? And when someone is approaching you and you're telling them to stop and they keep coming, then it may depend, it's going to depend on several things. What are they saying? Are they threatening you? Is it someone who you know? Is it someone you have a history with? Is it, what is the relationship between the parties? If you've got, say, someone who is disabled or sick or in a wheelchair, and they're telling, a 6 foot tall guy to stop coming towards them, a court might look at that different than if, say, you or I was in that position. So it's going to depend on the context and of the circumstances. And what it comes down to is what is reasonable. And what is reasonable under the circumstances is just going to depend. I can think of scenarios, and you can too, where it might be reasonable to use force, and it might be unreasonable to use force, and it's just going to depend. Before the next question, I can see y'all can't, but our Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth is here. I just want to welcome him, and I know he's been a friend of Bama Carry. Appreciate the work he's doing. Yes, Bruce.
And I would highly recommend that everybody has self-defense fund coverage.
Thank you. Josh Lee, Madison County. I'm also a retired police officer, so I kind of know part of the answer to this. Use of force continuum, as it is in a court, as it is out on the street. How does that transfer over to civilian use in a courtroom? And also, is there education on that available for people who have never even heard of use of force continuum?
The use of force, say that again for me, please.
Which part?
You said the use of force continuum?
Right, as it pertains to law enforcement, as opposed to how it pertains to a civilian, non-law enforcement individual.
Sure. So, that's an issue. The Alabama courts have not tackled that under the stand your ground law that I've seen. I know Florida is looking at that now. I know in some cases where, say, a law enforcement officer is being prosecuted, I heard it argued that they should be held to somewhat of a higher standard than someone else because of their background, training, and experience. And that's something it's kind of a slippery slope when you get into that. And normally a law enforcement officer who's on trial will argue that be disallowed, that they not be held to a higher standard than someone else, that they be held to just the reasonable person standard that we all are. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm with Blunt County, Bama Carry. With most everyone on social media now and posting memes, make my day, a lot of pro-Second Amendment memes, can that be held against you if you have to use your weapon in self-defense?
I'm really glad he asked that question. Did everybody hear it? Can your Facebook post be used against you? You betcha. People's social media history comes in on every kind of case. Criminal case, civil case, divorce case, you name it. Social media is coming in. And if you have you mentioned a pro-Second Amendment post, there have been cases where a good plaintiff's lawyer or a good prosecutor prosecuting someone will get those and say that is evidence of intent, of a predisposition to be trigger happy. And so, absolutely. But anything that is on social media is going to be talked about in court. And yes, someone can argue that there's an inference to be gleaned from your social media post. Yes, sir.
Can workplace policy be brought into the courtroom? For instance, I'm a firefighter in Huntsville, and if one day we get a call and I happen to forget to disarm when I go to work and have to use that gun as self-defense, can the workplace policy play into that case?
I think that could go either way. It's sometimes things like workplace policies and things of that nature are held to be prejudicial or unfairly prejudicial because a jury might attach too much weight to that. And certainly if you were in that situation, you would probably want that not to come in because it's just one more thing you're on trial for. Okay, a lot of times in cases, if you bring in that, then I think it would be unfairly prejudicial, because it could be, well, if you're not guilty of this, you're guilty of something, right? So that would be subject to a pretrial motion, most likely, to exclude it. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm a resident of Tuscaloosa County, and we have a driveway that's between two roads, and there's a Dollar General on the back of it. I keep having people coming through. I put up fences, I put up signs, say anything you want to say on it. Stay out. No through road, no pass. I've had people come with 18 dualies, 20-foot trailers go around at 40 miles an hour around my house, keep flying out there. I've stopped a few people. I don't take it. I might have a gun in my hand, but I don't aim at them. I don't throw my fist at them, raise cane. I've tried to keep them stopped, and I've asked the county, he said, what do you do? He said, well, you gotta let them go. I said, well, it's not a matter of letting them go. I just like them not to come through. And then a state trooper told me, well, just go ahead and shoot them. That's what I do. But is there anything that can be done like that? If I put a gate up, I've already paid $2,000 for something. I've got to put another gate up, but I don't have a fence across. And if that gate's shut, and they come around the fence, or no fence, they won't come around when it's wet, they're gonna get stuck. But if I put the gate up with an opener or stuff like that, they come around, do I have any rights on that?
Well, I think you've probably got rights to enforce civilly or trespass and then coming on your property. I think you can do that. I think you should talk to a lawyer in Tuscaloosa about what you can do to keep them off your property. I don't agree with the state trooper.
And he most definitely needs that coverage.
Yeah, that's right.
What if the aggression is over? Somebody's already beat you to the ground, they're walking on. Does your state ground cover you now?
You know, that is a great question. What if it's over? I mean, you're beat, you're on the ground, and they're walking off. I would say stand your ground immunity would probably not apply in that one. It's, you know, of course, it's going to depend on the circumstances. If you're worried about him coming back, then it might. All right. Well, have your hand raised. Question.
My name is Brian Bentley. I'm with the Cleveland County chapter, used to be in Tuscaloosa. A lot of things have come into play with commercial vehicles. I posted a thing the other day, and the question was, most of these drivers live in their truck a majority of the time. And there's certain federal guidelines and stuff like that that are being proposed now. If a driver of a commercial truck is defending himself, what would that involve from a stand your ground instead of Alabama?
Well, certainly I think if he's a licensed commercial vehicle driver in his truck, that's somewhere he's got a right to be. Assuming he's not breaking any laws and he's not the initial aggressor, then I think it would probably apply, because under the stand your ground law, it doesn't matter whether you're in your home or not. You know, certainly he can argue that his truck is his home, but it doesn't matter because, as long as he's somewhere he has a right to be, right, in his truck at a truck stop, wherever. Yes, sir. We are winding down on time. I may have time for one or two more questions.
Anybody got a question, raise your hand. I see you in front.
Assuming someone stops someone in the commission of another crime and then it escalates. For example, somebody is, say, breaking into the shed, you stop them, hold them at gunpoint for the police to arrive, and they decide that they're going to take the gun away from you. Stand your ground, even though you initiated it by saying, quit stealing my things. and you're gonna stay here till the police get here. The guy says, no, I'm not, I'm fixing to take the gun. Then how does that play out?
You initiated contact, but you didn't initiate the aggression. The person breaking in initiated the aggression. And so I would think under the facts as you've described them, that stand your ground probably would apply. I just noticed Mr. Ziegler's here, another statewide elected official. Appreciate him being here today. Two more?
Thank you. I get off work at 8:30, I have privacy fence around my house. If I get out of my truck at night and someone, like especially during the summer months, walking back and forth, comes into my property, and I have physical problems and an altercation physically, I would probably not do very well to defend myself. If I tell them to stop, and they do not, even if they're unarmed, they continue toward me, do I have the right at that time to shoot them? Because I've already got one strike against me. I'm a gun owner and I'm a postal worker.
You know, it's, I would say if the more that escalates, the more of a stand your ground situation it could turn into. I don't think that just the mere presence, them being there would get you there, but certainly if you know, the more it escalates, the closer they are to you under your circumstances, maybe. Okay, may depend on what the relationship is, if they knew about your physical problems. Yes, sir. Last question.
At which point does a vehicle become a lethal weapon and you gain your standard ground?
At what point does a vehicle become a lethal weapon? I have defended a case where one party was on a tractor and another party had a gun. And the party on the tractor attempted to run over someone, and the man with the gun stopped it. Okay? There have been other cases I've seen, there's other cases I've defended where someone attempted to use a motor vehicle as a weapon. So yes, the bad guy does not have to have a knife or gun. It can, certainly a vehicle can be a lethal weapon, and stand your ground would apply there. Y'all got a great program today. I wish I could stay for it, but I have got to get back to Coleman after this presentation. Henry has a basketball game at 12:30. But if anyone wants any more information, you can email me, champ@champcrocker.com. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, all that. And Bama Carry's got a copy of my presentation today, but if you want to email me, I can send it to you directly, or you can get it from them. Thank you all for your questions, for your attentiveness, and for being here today. It's certainly been an honor.
Okay, let's enjoy 15 minutes of break and fellowship. How about it? 11:30, be back, and we'll hear from Will Langsworth.
All right. Hey guys. So we're gonna take a quick break here. I will come back and make sure that you are liking this. Here, let me just give you a look at the crowd here. So there's a lot of people. I'd say about 200. And let's see. We're gonna hear from these people. So we've got the Robinsons here. Say hello, Robinson family. Say hello to Bama Carry, Texas. So we got the they're all as well. Good. And then we're going to be hearing from Caitlin here in a minute. Bama Carry, Texas says hi.
Hello.
Got you at the right time. So anyway, we're gonna take a quick break, and I'll be back with more of this. That way you just don't have video of a bunch of crap. But make sure you've subscribed to this channel, and you also ring the bell so that you get updates when we go live again. And we'll be right back.